Welcome back to Thor, God of Thunder HD and Knuckles.
Part 4.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
because it means that.
yeah. So yeah,
Boop.
join us next time.
Oh no, Teal, hunters!
Once again, the game lacks impact. For a jump like this, you should have shown me for literally smashing the ground and creating like a shockwave, surprising
yeah.
everyone. But no, instead it just farts on the platform.
So yeah, join us next time for part Loki.
You know, Teal, I just realized that the foot shoulders...
Also, hold on, actually, because... Oh, sore loser. Fuck.
And now that's going to set us back a bit.
Now for the boss type of Vanaheim, I think it's the swamp giant. I think it's called
a
Mire giant.
That nobody's gonna remember.
Mire giant. There we
go.
Once again, it's similar to the Frost giant boss since it has pieces of armor, but it's more vulnerable to your lightning powers, and it has a different timing in how it needs to be grabbed. So once again, keep your guards, but at the end of the day, it's still the same tactic.
Is it just me, or are the shadows in this game way too
horrible?
Dark?
Yes.
Like, look at it. I can barely see the boss's face. Like, if there's one thing I don't like about certain quote-unquote
the balance in contrast with the things that are illuminated is atrocious, I agree.
It's just like the broken glitch of the lighting engine of Rise of Lyric that I triggered.
Well, just be glad we have been seeing lighter, more illuminated level, because after this we'll have to go to Muspelheim, where 90% of the time will be in the dark, so look forward to that.
Joy, like, I get it, you need to be immersive to have shading here and there, but by God, in certain quote-unquote HD games, their method of shading is like, oh, something's in shadow, make it absolutely hard to make out his face. To the point where I feel like I need to go to look at some artwork to get a clear look.
I would barely call this an HD game, to be honest. The textures look so Wii-ish.
It's different. It's still actually different from the Wii version, from what I recall. Not in a sense of content, but in a sense of how it was programmed.
Yep.
Because once again, the Wii version was done for a completely different studio. Actually, let me check.
Again,
which makes no sense. You'd think they would actually take advantage of the powerful hardware, but no, this still looks like a Wii game.
Also because this was like rushed beyond belief as tradition.
And again, let me repeat, the Wii version performs better than the HD version.
Red Fly Studios, what have they done?
Sonic Colors, which is a Wii game, looks better than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, this needs to be pointed out. I'm literally just holding the circle button to move forward. Keep that in mind, because the game expects me to stop at some point to perform some combat section. I think it's about to come out. Basically, this is with Jungle Riders, that the Disneyland attraction, just even more boring somehow. Look at this. There's nothing going on.
Just press circle
this
to
should have been a cutscene.
row your boat gently down the stream.
Hold on. Oh, I need to fight them. Well, excuse me, coming through. Pardon me. Goodbye.
Merrily, 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 merrily. Forest life is a dream.
Like, seriously, why do you have a section like this? I get it, to masquerade the loading times. Fine. But just make it a cutscene if you have to. Don't make this kind of bullshit. It's kind of akin to well, it's not the same thing, mind you, but it does remind me of when games sometimes, in order to keep more immersion, puts you in a section where your character has to walk just at a slow pace, doesn't have to run. If it has a run button, it's disabled for that section because, you need to, quote-unquote, immerse yourself, hearing the dialogues that the two characters are talking about without necessarily running. But it feels more constrictive, and this is one of the worst examples of that. Thor just needed to get a stroll on this fucking river just to get from point A to point B, when it could have easily been the simple cutscene.
Tio, it's been a long time since I played this game. Can you actually fight those mooks that show up?
Yes, if I stop. Meanwhile at Asgard... Jesus Christ. Okay, there you go. That's what I mentioned, Dweebs. Now, Loki will use the power of the MacGuffin from
You've unleashed hell.
to freeze him. But that's the thing. Loki is an idiot because he didn't thought Mangog would have just burned away the ice.
It's
And
literally...
now Loki's in deep trouble.
Oh my god, it's
Well
literally...
done, Loki.
It's literally Incredibles. Bad guy, intentionally makes trouble, tries to make himself the hero so that
Didn't
he
I
can
just
solve
beat
it, but
all of
then
you
fails
guys in
it.
mirror?
Also, that
don't you see-
cutscene was
It's like,
lagging.
don't you see, it's like that void ship in Doctor Who that held all those Daleks. Remember?
Oh,
everyone.
so Loki, I guess you could say you done goofed.
If everyone will be Asgardian, no one will.
So,
Yeah.
so basically, Loki's plan was, oh, I'm going to intentionally release this demonic god of destruction or whatnot on Asgard, but then I'll totally be able to solve it. And then when his plan so surprisingly fails, he's
Backfires.
like, well, crap,
yeah.
now I need Thor again. It's like, boy, what if such
Get
a...
me-
So basically, it's the plot of Megamind.
Kinda.
Well, okay. The difference is
Was
like,
Megamind a good movie?
oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I argue it is
okay.
wine. I argue it is wine, but has aged better over time now that we're more accustomed to superhero movies of all
I
kinds.
liked it more than most did at the time, I think.
I still
I'm
take
not
that
sure how
over
people-
Despicable Me, if I had to be
It's
honest.
one of the. I actually watched it recently, so I can. It's okay. It's perfectly fine.
Let me put it like
it's
this.
definitely better than
I'm not sure
most
how
of...
people feel about it now, but back then, I think most people hated it.
My
Oh,
only real
nowadays
issue-
people love that movie, but I get maybe back in the day a lot of people thought it was a bit... Oh god, when was Despicable Me made?
2010, the same year, actually.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I think the problem with Mega Man is like a lot of people thought, oh, it's a Despicable Me clone, like this bad guy
Actually, I
turns out to not-
forgot. Didn't Mega Man came before?
No, I think it was like at Christmas, late 2010.
Let me
I think.
check. 2010 in movies.
Okay, yeah.
Remember, Taylor, like DreamWorks releases like three movies per year.
Yeah.
Mega Man 2010.
It's but for me, it's one of those things where it was trying to do a subversion of superhero storylines. You know, where not just in the fact that it ends up being Megamind becoming the hero despite being the villain at first. Even the whole thing about the superhero supposedly being dead but turning out to be alive, all that kind of stuff. My only real issue is that it's a fine movie for what it is. I just don't think it's as good as How to Train Your Dragon, which also came out that same year.
Okay.
Anyway, Mega Man was November 5th. Despicable Me. Let me check.
Wait, there were three DreamWorks
July
movies in
July
1 year?
9th. Huh.
Wait, so this is DreamWorks. They're kind of this is how they do. They produce their movies like a fucking factory.
Well,
That is
So
also-
in 2010, there was How to Train Your Dragon, Shrek 4, and Megamind.
all of
That
which
is also
were good
reason why
movies.
some of their movies tend to just be not completely ignored, but just no one remembers them, like Turbo.
Oh
Yeah.
God, Turbo. Okay, I will give DreamWorks this though. Before they got bought out by Universal and are
All
now...
right, sorry, Joe, I need to explain this. Now you have to slowly, very slowly move through this river.
Mush.
So,
Mush.
time to speed up. And
Chaos Control.
to keep tradition with the Sega
even-
video game music, this is, let me check exactly, Fear and Willpower from Valkyria Chronicles 3.
Well, so you say that we're speeding up, but this
It still looks, yeah, Shiro,
Yeah.
this is sped up, I think, 4 times, either 4 or 8 times.
It's like it's like when I speed up. It's
a
like when I
theme park ride.
it's like when I sped up at 4 times that boss from 13, and it still looked.
Oh, the
airship. And it still took its time.
I
Like,
mean,
aside from the character movements, the whole environment is just moving so slowly. It's
Anyway.
quite
again,
weird to look at.
it's more like a turret section when they get down to it, and it's kind of fun shooting things, but it moves so slowly. Anyway, go on, Jova.
The thing about DreamWorks is like, well, before they got bought out and nowadays apparently are powerful Illumination Studios, one thing you could say about each of their movies, even the ones that turned out to not be that memorable, was that they each had a sense of passion behind them. Good ideas here and there. And Mega Man is definitely one of those good ideas. It's just that when it first...
2010 was sorry.
Although bear in mind, the guy who directed Megamind also directed The Boss Baby.
Well,
Yeah.
well, Dwibs, nobody's really immune to...
Well, to be fair, to his credit, Wibbs, remember, it also has to do with management, because the big problem with Universal buying DreamWorks is that there was a big change in management where Chris Melandri is now in charge. So, because remember, back in that, like Jovo was just saying, during that 2010 to 2014 period, DreamWorks was kind of going through a kind of renaissance where they were delivering more quality films than usual. But then when Universal bought them, unfortunately, I mean, they still kind of occasionally come up with a good one, but unfortunately they'll have stuff like Boss Baby.
Or Spear
Well,
running free.
Boss Baby was
Well, to be fair,
before,
we're talking about the movies, not so much the
besides,
Netflix
Fair
shows.
enough.
Boss Baby was made before that happened.
Oh,
Was
really?
it?
Well, in that
Boss
case,
Baby came out in 2017.
Wait,
Oh,
hold
in that
on,
case,
dude. I thought Universal had bought DreamWorks by then.
Well, even if they did buy them, by that point, it would have been too late to really change anything.
Was Trolls released before or after the buyout?
Before.
Oh, that was before. It's like I
Okay.
said. It's like
Trolls came out in 2016.
It's like I said. Trolls is one of the most amazing subversions of audiences' expectations. The marketing told the story that movie was going to be the usual, oh, it's got toy humor, it's for kids sort of stuff, but no, it turned out to be a surprisingly actually heartful and good movie.
I know they're about to release a sequel on streaming as of time of recording.
Anyway,
I don't know, Java. Like Justin Timberlake's character just suddenly falls in love with Anna Kendrick out of nowhere.
well,
Of
I'm
course.
not going to say that it's an infallible movie, but it turned out to be a surprisingly good movie, I'd say. Not without its faults, mind you. But anyway, back to the point.
Oh, who's a cutie?
Back to the point. Megamind was a movie. It was a pretty good movie,
It's
and
harmless, I guess.
it actually did get pretty good reception. The main
Oh,
critiques
no.
were, oh god.
Basically, now you have to fight the giant that you have been using this whole time. However, the devs wanted to be cute and to give you a possible alternate outcome. You can even fight normally the swamp giant and killing directly, or as the cutscene showcased to you, energize the two rooms from that particular bridge and lowering it so you can let the giant go back to the swamp on its own. If you do that, you actually get an achievement trophy and you basically count as you won the fight without having played. It's recommended for hard mode essentially in order to not waste too much power. Go on.
Now, you're probably wondering why this troll didn't just attack us and actually pulled us down the river.
He was feeling
Well, he
really...
couldn't. As you can see, he can attack us only when he's on the ground.
But that's
My
the thing,
personal-
he got out of the water. Like, one might wonder why he didn't turn around and try and smack Thor. But I digress. Back to the talk about...
My personal pick for the most underappreciated DreamWorks movie of the last decade goes for Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Like that movie is so sadly under.
That's more of a licensed product. Like among their original ideas, what would you choose?
Well,
There's one particular what?
I was kind of on the middle thing, but what would you
Sure,
choose
sure.
for
Go
their actual original ideas?
No. You go ahead and finish what you were saying.
The thing about Megamind was like, well, it had the misfortune of being seen as, sort of a scone off of The Incredibles with Despicable Me as its villain.
Doesn't help that 2010 was a sort of a soft year for superhero movies, but were present. But Iron Man 2 had left such a sore taste in everyone's mouth. They got better immediately thanks to Thor and Captain America, of course, but and I think Man of Steel was right around the corner. So
I will say that despite Megamind being more creative, I did technically I did kind of enjoy Despicable Me 1 a bit more. I thought the characters were a bit more charming.
Anyway,
did that the first
I'll be
movie.
honest.
And-
I'll be honest. The year it came out, I had no idea that Mr. Body and Sherman was a movie. I was more focused on how to Train the Dragon 2 at that point.
It's actually really good. You like Steve Carell, don't you? The Steve Carell is in it.
anyway,
go on.
back to my point. Megamind, when it first came out, it had generally good reception from both the critics and audiences alike. It's just that, what kept it from being, on top of the world like a lot of people regard it nowadays was because a lot of people saw it as a bit derivative when really it was just a matter of, its release time here. Probably didn't help that, Despicable Me was like the bee's knees. That's right, folks. There was a time when people thought Illumination were going to be the people who would change the film industry. That's how good the first Despicable Me was to people.
They probably did, just not in the way people expected, I suppose.
It's like I've said, Illumination are
making a Mario movie.
It's like I've said, Illumination are pretty much the Epic Games Store of, film studios here. When they first started out, people were overjoyed because it would be a new bout of competition to the field. The problem was what they grew into. But the thing about...
Oh, sorry. No, sorry.
no,
I wanted to say something.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Sorry, go ahead.
back to Shirai's thing about Megamind, though. It's definitely a pretty good movie, and one that's nice and subversive here and there. It works off a lot of the tried-and-true tropes, plays some straight to keep you on your toes here and there, but plays others with a rather interesting twist here and there. It actually is a good study of a lot of things, like what happens when a villain finally beats the foe, or what happens when, someone tries to lie to themselves to sort of live a life that they really do or don't want to live.
Which, to be fair, Joe, the lie revealed was a sort of a custom thing that DreamWorks was doing those years.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Megamind managed to not have DreamWorks' usual thing of the lie revealed. Well, okay.
It does contain one, but it's handled better than in other movies, like Over the Edge.
There is that one tiny moment, but I don't know if I consider that a lie revealed so much as I consider it a spur of the moment. I kind of had to be like this. Turns out I'm out like this. It's like, well, and I guess it helps because the protagonist is a villain, so it's okay if the characters kind of, might have trust issues with him with a lie revealed thing there. Like,
I love how in the 2010s, DreamWorks and Disney had like one recurring theme throughout their movies. DreamWorks had the lie revealed, Disney had the twist villain, and people got sick and tired of both of them after a while.
Lie revealed seems to give DreamWorks life for some reason. Like, don't get me wrong, they definitely make a lot of good movies, but man, Lie Revealed is practically their calling card.
The interesting thing, Joe,
Disney really loved their twist villains, whether it made sense or not. But yes, Pedro?
Well, the interesting thing... Well, I would argue that the only one that didn't make sense was the one from Frozen, to be honest.
There were other ones too, but to go into topic about that would probably waste a bit too much time.
Baby, you were saying, Pedro?
Like, it's interesting because that used to be a Pixar thing. Remember with Toy Story 2 and stuff like that. So that, and Toy Story 3 also had that. So
there we go. Sorry, go on, Shiri.
No, I was just going to quickly say, I think it was more cartoons that did the whole, and it kind of contributed to people getting sick of the trope, was for the twist villain specifically making it be a character where it makes no sense whatsoever.
I will say also this, one problem that tends to go along with the twist villain is that in order for it to be, the twist villain, most of the time the role is assigned to a person that has no particular skills or combat abilities, meaning that the effectiveness of being a villain relies mostly on psychological stuff, which for animation is something that can be pulled off always 100% of the time. Like you have a well, not in a sense of twist villain, but you have a case of Mother Gothel which works fantastically thanks to psychological manipulation, and didn't really needed particular powers, even though the series kind of fleshes out a bit more chemistry attitude. But then you have cases like Hans. He has a sword.
Yeah.
Good.
I think part of the problem.
I get it when you have cases like Gaston, who was simply a hunter, but you get the idea that he was a person who could do many things with many skills, even like Clayton being a hunter and all. Hans is just a guy with a sword.
You know, okay, here's part of a problem with the era of Disney twist villains here. It's like, well, let's compare them to the Disney villains of the Renaissance era. Sure, they were anything but subtle and weren't twist villains, but the reason they're memorable is because of the impact they led. You have Jafar, who is one of the classic Vizier tropes. You have Ursula, the Sea Witch. You have Scar, the villain who actually wins for a good chunk of the movie and succeeds in his major forefront plans in there. And then you have Frollo, frickin' Frollo, who is a whole basket case here and there. Again, all very memorable villains here and there. The problem with the twist villain era is like, well, not only do these villains not always work as much, but they don't really get that much exposure as the villains. Like, okay, let's look at Hans here and there. The whole advertising thing with him was he was the nice guy and stuff. So, for a lot of stuff, that's what people had to associate with him. Then you have stuff, and you see how he acts in the movie, and let's just say it doesn't make a lick of sense the way he acts here. Like, okay, he says, oh, I want to kill Elsa so then I can have the throne after Anya gives her trust to me. Yet, he explicitly saves Elsa's life at a point where it would have been beneficial for him to go, whoops, I tripped trying to protect Elsa. Or, by God, the part where he says, oh, I've already gotten away with it. No, you haven't, you moron! You haven't even killed Anna at that as well. You just left her to supposedly die, which is very much the villain ball sort of thing.
She's too weak to finish off, let you know.
It's
That's a Japanese thing, not a Western one.
It is so the villain ball here and there. And the problem is like, well, Frozen made a lot of money, so then Disney kind of followed that trend here, where they would have either twist villains or villains who were revealed at the very last
Okay,
moment.
hold on, guys. I will need to interrupt you because this is a bit important to explain the nature of Mangog.
All right.
If you haven't noticed, we have been hearing basically audiologues talking about how the Frostgrinder was built by the previous population of this realm, the Vanir, who are now extinct. And Mangog was created by Odin.
Of course he was.
It's one of those old shames that the Old Father created. Oops.
We cannot control it. None of our weapons has any effect. Mangog is destroying us.
But you mean none of our weapons have any effect?
None of my kind would survive to hear this, but before the beast was freed, we detected the god.
Oh, that's convenient.
Perhaps Skraelings holds some power over the creature. For the sake of my people, we may only hope.
That looks like a King's Quest 8 texture. Like
I argue King's Quest 8 looked better. In some areas at least.
debatable.
Well, I've seen the dolls in the 7 remake. Are they like that too?
Not really. No, I'm gonna still say that the ghost in that
Anyway, what you need to take from this is the fact that the reason Mangog speaks also like that and is filled with rage is because it absorbs, similar to the Horned one in Okuri 2, it absorbs the souls of those it corrupts and kills, meaning that it grows powerful and is an amalgamation of souls trapped inside a suit of armor. Meaning that the only real things to kill him is to use escape right to damage the armor high enough so the souls can be freed. But now, one thing at a time. First things first, we need to reach Frostgrinder, and in order to do so, we need to confront Ulik and his trolls. Go on, in the meantime, I'll reprise when it's necessary.
Oh, about the twist villain stuff?
Well, whatever you were talking about.
Yeah, I was answering Jova to something. That technically Jova Wreck-It Ralph was the one that started the twist villain trend, not Frozen.
Oh, well, I'm talking about what popularized it. Wait a minute, hold on. Wreck-It Ralph came before it, right?
Wreck-It Ralph came out in 2012.
Okay, yeah.
A year before.
I could swear there was at least like one movie before that had it.
Well,
No,
okay.
have it.
Okay. If we're going to be technical, the first Disney twist villain was in Atlantis, The Lost Empire.
True, and I didn't like that one either.
I'm talking more so about what made it a trend, but yeah, a lot of people didn't like it, even with
Honestly,
Atlantis.
I thought, well, I guess I reserved it for the actual commentary, but but I do wonder if the entire climax of the movie was supposed to go in a different direction and was actually hastily rewritten.
I think the issue,
at the end.
Jova, is that the reason the twist villain sticks out in that way that you were describing is because these new movies tend to be very much character-driven movies about the personal dilemmas that characters are going through. Like in Wreck-It Ralph, where of course Ralph has to deal with the fact that he doesn't feel comfortable with who he is, you know.
Okay.
And
Although,
then you have,
I wonder if they'll be doing those anymore since Rich Moore's gone off to Sony.
Well, let's remember, there's still a Phil Johnson, his co-director. But anyway,
I will say this right now, though. Okay, I feel Wreck-It Ralph kind of did the plot twist villain kind of rather interesting. Not the best, though. I'm going to say this.
And I argue it still had, a villain which was actually both intimidating and was capable of doing things, especially near the end.
Oh, I love Turbo, to be honest.
Absolutely. Turbo was the villain, but I'd say the best Disney twist villain we've had is the one from Coco. Now, I won't spoil who it is, but I'll admit, aside from one thing that I do yell cheater at, is like, holy cow, come on, that was a BS clue. Otherwise, I feel like the twist villain of Coco is quite possibly Disney's best work at that.
Well, technically that was Pixar, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Pixar are Disney at this point.
Sure. Well, remember, when John Lasseter became head of both studios share
Uh,
similar culture, and that's why they started sharing tropes within their movies.
Okay,
Now Lasseter's gone, and we're wondering what's going to change.
Well, remember this. Now each studio has its own boss, with Pete Docter at Pixar and Jennifer Lee at Disney. So.
Anyway, the reason I bring up Frozen was like, well, it's pretty obvious Frozen was the one that popularized the formula, because you could tell that Frozen popularized stuff because Maleficent the year after pretty much followed a lot of trends that Frozen did, as did quite a few other Disney movies.
True.
That's a bit of a problem with modern Disney. When they get something that works, they tend to run it into the ground. Like, let's
I
compare
can
this.
imagine the initial thought process. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The problem is that it's more like trying to make a perfectly good-looking square passing through not shapes that not always has the same, structure.
Let me do a bit of a comparison. See, back in the day when Disney were on top of the world with the
game. Oh, okay.
What? That was weird. Back in the day when Disney were on the top of the world with Lion King, they didn't just try to make everything Lion King. And mind you, Lion King was so big that they were considering replacing Mickey Mouse with Simba as the company mascot. But that's the thing. They knew not to let the successes of Lion King dictate how they would do every other single movie. Sure, by all means, franchise it, but let Lion King be Lion King and let other things be their own things.
That I agree with you, Jova, but at the same time, let's not forget how the public didn't like that either. I mean, Hercules, despite being a movie that I love, and most of us here really like Hercules, people complained about that movie because it was too comedic and whatever, and it's not on par with Beauty and the Beast. But a lot of the post-Lion King movies got backlash for not being like Beauty and the Beast or Lion King.
Okay. To be fair,
there was also the internal troubles for the team that was doing the King of the Sun movie that got eventually retooled into Emperor's New Groove.
That said, though, you want to know the difference, though? A lot of movies, despite some fan backlash for not being as bigoted, still had pretty good fan bases, whereas, modern-day movies in here kind of suffered for trying to be like Frozen. Like, a lot of people really did not like the Maleficent movie for just trying to be Frozen, when it said it was going to try and be like Wicked.
True, yeah. But yeah, like I was saying, that's a thing, Jova. Like, the reason that they stick out a bit is because, again, these movies focus a lot on the character dilemmas.
Absolutely.
Which is why, and that's what the movie should focus. That's one of the things that I really like about the post Zootopia ones. Because after Zootopia, they dropped that, and Moana doesn't have any twist villains. The Moana is purely entirely focused on the hero journey.
That's the other thing. So when there's not a twist villain, the alternative is to not have a villain at all, basically.
At least not the traditional kind.
Honestly, I don't mind stories without villains, to be honest. I mean,
I agree to an extent. It just doesn't need to become a new trend, to be honest.
I think I see where Tio's coming from. See, Disney seemed to have this obsession with trying to be considered high art, by being supposedly neutral or always with the gray morality. Don't get me wrong, gray morality is nice, but come on, it never hurts to just go sometimes simple black and white here and there. Again, that's part of what helped the Disney Renaissance here and there. When they were just up and bold with their villains, creative in how dastardly they could be. And you know what, they could still be creative with that. I just hope that, now that Disney are in this new era where they're not tied by John Lasseter or whatnot, where, they'll get to actually try the stuff while not being afraid to review some of the classics that do help out here and there. I mean, look at the MCU. That one actually did improve by, improving on its villains.
Now.
Well, in that case, Jova, let's see and hope how Disney will handle the release of Raya the Last Dragon, because Frozen 2 was the final movie that John Lasseter was involved. Raya the Last Dragon is going to be the first movie of the Jennifer Lee era. So we'll have to. Onward was the first Pixar movie of the Pete Docter era, and that movie to me is the studio's grand return to form. So let's see how Raya the Last Dragon does.
What exactly
Also,
is that movie about?
I'm sorry, Jova, could you repeat that?
Raya the Last Dragon. That's a Disney movie, right?
Yeah, that's their new IP that they're making. It's basically a movie inspired by another Chinese legend. It's going to attempt to be the new Mulan, kind of a Mulan spiritual successor of sorts.
Is it?
It's slated to come out around November.
Unfortunately, it might change.
God.
We'll see how things go.
Why was there a first-person camera for that scene?
And
I don't get
Thor,
it.
nonetheless. That was weird.
No, it was for Ulik, from Ulik's perspective.
Well, that's what I mean. It's
the fight itself is nice enough, but change of pace from the giant boss fights, because it requires you to be on your toes, having to perform different kind of QTs, like this dodging shit. But it's still very rough around the edges, and some of the QTEs tend to be Bayonetta, tier of way too fast. Well, Resident Evil 4, that's a more arguable option. Level of way too fast for you to notice, and if you fail them, you don't die, but you take some damage. So nonetheless, it's probably one of the best fights in the entire game.
I know we've talked over him a lot, but what's the boss's
don't worry,
deal
Joe.
in
Again,
the
if
story?
there is something that I need to mention, I'll just do it.
So what exactly is this boss's deal in the main story, and should we care?
Oh, if you don't remember from the cutscene, Ulik wants to get away because he's not native from Vanaheim. He just get here as prisoner, and Loki had giving a proposal, So now basically, who wins this fight will use Frostgrinder.
So why?
Hold on. Wait for it. Oh, actually, no, it's for the cutscene later, because the fight is over. But let's just say that I decided to add something tiny to make more decent what Thor is about to do. Here we go.
Oh, no you don't. Ha! So long, Bowser!
Pretty much. Alright, Loki, can I go home now?
So... Well,
I don't think that was his idea.
Holy crap, Chris actually sounded alive with that line. Holy crap. Calm down, Chris. We don't want you to have a heart attack now, right? Okay, calm down.
It's a long story.
Because, wait, why doesn't he just tell him it was because
Once again, Jova, sorry to tell you, the payoff for Loki's lies and deceit in this game is so a puff of smoke when you get down to it.
So what, please say the Bifrost.
Tio, are you sure that this isn't the payoff? Because it seems like we saw the payoff.
No, don't worry. It's reserved for the last part.
I mean,
Wow.
imagine if they started. Imagine if they started doing that in the movies. All right, Tony, we need to get Infinity Gauntlet to get stones.
Technically speaking, it could be possible. It is the name of the thing, not an object.
I'm honestly convinced this script was written by a machine, a robot.
Well, it's like we said, Pedro. For all we know, these people who made the game may not have probably didn't know a lick of the game, of the actual movie.
They only had like the
That doesn't
concept
really
in there.
excuse this dialogue, though.
Let me actually check who was the writer. Matt Fraction. Yeah, I think I mentioned him already. It's an actual comic book writer, but I don't know. It feels odd. Yeah, fraction. It is a thing.
All right. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see
In the
you-
next part, we'll actually get to Muspelheim and see how things will go there.
All right. Well, we'll see you in next part. See ya.
See ya.
Ta-ta.